This guy had one simple dream: to become a famous chef, open his own little restaurant, and live a peaceful life. He attended a high school with a specialized culinary arts department and worked hard every single day. But one night, while walking home exhausted and mentally practicing his knife skills, his dream was brutally shattered. In the blink of an eye, the legendary truck-kun struck, slamming into him at full speed and ending his culinary journey right then and there. But when he finally opened his eyes, expecting to see the afterlife or a hospital ceiling, he was greeted by the terrifying scenery of a completely unfamiliar world. He quickly realized he had experienced what everyone calls being isekai'd. However, instead of waking up in a cozy village with a harem and overpowered cheat skills, our boy woke up in the middle of a literal apocalypse. Fire raged everywhere, buildings crumbled to the ground, and to top it all off, a massive, terrifying red dragon was roasting everything in sight while knights desperately fought for their lives. As he sat there completely frozen in shock, a rugged, battle-hardened soldier grabbed him by the collar, yelling at him to snap out of it, or they were both going to die. Our guy quickly learned that this new world was crawling with monsters and magic, and the empire he was currently standing in was locked in a brutal, bloody war against dragons. Despite the absolute chaos, he tried to adapt. Humans are adaptable creatures after all. Trying to look on the bright side, he reasoned that he had at least survived the truck crash and gotten a second chance at life. He started convincing himself that things couldn't be that bad. After all, in this fantasy world, he wouldn't have to worry about grueling college entrance exams, and best of all, he definitely wouldn't have to go through mandatory military service. Or so he thought. Just as the word military crossed his mind and he started wondering what his special cheat ability might be, an Imperial commander rode up on horseback, screaming for everyone's attention. He announced an emergency edict from the Emperor. The Lufan Empire was on the brink of total destruction. Knights were dying, mercenaries were fleeing, and there was absolutely nowhere left to hide from the dragons. With the military severely undermanned, a desperate new system was implemented on the spot. By imperial decree, every single person in the area, regardless of status, was immediately drafted into the Templar Knights to fight on the front lines. Our boy's face dropped in pure, unadulterated horror. His peaceful second life as a chef was over before it had even begun. He was now a frontline conscript in a war against giant, fire-breathing lizards. Just like that, he was officially enlisted. No takebacks, no exceptions. Dragged screaming into the barracks, he was thrown straight into the meat grinder as a recruit. The commander mentioned that if he showed high magic potential, he might eventually get assigned to the Magic Corps. But for now, life on the front lines was absolute hell. But the absolute worst part? The military rations. One day, while forcing down a disgusting slop that tasted like boiled potatoes mixed with literal dirt, a light bulb went off in his head. All the other soldiers were complaining about the garbage food too. He realized that if he opened a food stall right here, it would be a massive hit. His culinary dream wasn't dead, it was just on hold until he could make an absolute killing feeding these starving troops. There was just one tiny microscopic detail he didn't account for. When he heard that mages were discharged after just 2 years, he figured his service would be short too. Nope. Our guy ended up stuck in the military for 15 agonizing years. He later admitted that if he had known he'd be dodging dragonfire for a decade and a half, he probably would have given up on the spot. Flash forward to the present day in Drake City. Our boy, who now goes by the name L, is literally shedding tears of joy outside a vacant storefront. After 15 years of hell, he has finally secured a lease to open his very own restaurant. The sweet landlady, a woman named Ray, checks in on him, and upon learning he is setting up shop, points him toward the local butcher for his meat supply. She mentions the shop is run by her husband, warning Elle that the man has a bit of a mistrip. Fiery personality. Elle brushes it off with a smile. Come on, he just survived 15 years in a magical world war. How scary could a neighborhood butcher possibly be? Very scary, it turns out. The butcher, Noel, is a massive, heavily scarred brute who looks like he eats monsters for breakfast. The second, Elle meekly introduces himself as a restaurant owner looking to buy meat. Noel absolutely loses his mind. He slams his massive fist down, screaming that he won't sell him a single scrap. Apparently, the last restaurant owner, who happened to be a former mercenary buddy of his, completely screwed him over by buying cheap meat and selling it at a massive markup right before it rotted. Now, Chloe is convinced Elle is just another scammer trying to pull a fast one on him. Just as Elle is sweating bullets and contemplating running all the way back to the military, Ray bursts into the shop and absolutely domes her massive husband with a frying pan. She furiously scolds him for taking his past trauma out of a new customer and demands he hand over the goods. But Noel isn't going to make it that easy. He aggressively slams a bag of meat onto the counter, but when Elle checks inside, his heart drops. It isn't the premium Bellerin meat he asked for at all. Noel laughs in his face, telling him there is no way he's handing over his precious high-quality Bellerin meat to an unproven chef. Instead, the giant butcher throws down the ultimate gauntlet. Elle has to make a proper, mouth-watering dish using this inferior, low-grade meat. If he fails to satisfy Null's taste buds, he won't be allowed to buy even a single ounce of fat in this town ever again. With the challenge officially thrown down, the massive butcher Null proudly declares that his palate is incredibly refined, so Elle had better not screw this up. But our boy calmly accepts the bag of low-grade meat, completely unfazed by the giant's yelling. As soon as Elle leaves, Ray apologizes for her husband's ridiculous behavior. Elle just smiles and, with absolute confidence, invites them both to his new restaurant that evening to be his first official customers. As he walks off, Ray tries to secretly slip him some of the high-quality Bellerin meat, feeling terrible that he has to work with scraps. But Elle politely refuses, insisting that what he has is more than enough to create something spectacular. Ray is left standing there completely dumbfounded. She knows exactly what is in that bag. It isn't just cheap meat, it's the belly fat of a wooba, one of the most looked down upon ingredients in the entire city. You see, in this fantasy world, the local wildlife is a bit different. What we call a pig is known as a wooba, while a cut of premium wolf meat, or Bellerin, is considered a luxury delicacy. Wooba belly is strictly peasant food. It's the cheapest, most budget-friendly cut available, and most people here don't appreciate its fatty charm. But our boy knows a secret they don't. He knows the best way to unlock the incredible flavor of top-tier pork belly isn't with some fancy sauce or complicated recipe. It's simply by grilling it to absolute perfection. And he has a very special tool for the job, a literal fireball he can summon in the palm of his hand. Meanwhile, on their walk home, Ray calls her husband out on his little scheme. She knows he wasn't actually trying to test Elle's cooking skills, he was testing his character and sense of responsibility to see if he was the type of person who would cut corners. Noel stubbornly denies it, but his wife sees right through his tough guy act. The story then flashes back 11 years to the brutal front lines of the war, revealing exactly why Noel is so guarded. Hordes of grotesque monsters are tearing through the ranks of the knights, slaughtering them left and right. One of Noel's comrades gets his leg pinned under heavy rubble, screaming in pure terror as a hulking beast raises its club to finish him off. Just as the soldier is about to become monster food, a familiar voice cuts through the chaos. "I'm right here!" It's a younger Elle, but he isn't wearing an apron. He's a full-blown war hero. He unleashes a devastating magic attack called Thermal Blade, a swirling vortex of frost that instantly freezes and shatters every monster in the area. The soldier he just saved looks up with tears of gratitude, calling him by his real name, Sir Ellison. It turns out our humble little chef wasn't just some random conscript, he was a ridiculously overpowered magic knight and a legendary war hero. Back in the present, we see exactly how this legendary veteran puts his battle-honed magic to use in his new life. Every magic has its purpose, and Sir Ellison, now just LV Humble Chef, has found the ultimate culinary application for his signature ice spell. He summons a tiny, hyper-controlled version of his thermal blade, not to freeze armies of monsters, but to score impossibly perfect cuts into the luba belly. These magic-infused scores allow the marinade to penetrate deep into the meat while helping the moisture evaporate during cooking, guaranteeing an unbelievably crispy texture. Just as he finishes his prep, his 2 VIP guests arrive. Noel is still looking highly skeptical, grumbling that the only thing the tavern has going for it is that it's clean. Elle just smiles and gets to work, masterfully searing the pork belly skin side down on a lightly oiled griddle. The kitchen immediately fills with the mouth-watering crackling sound of sizzling pork. After grilling it to a perfect golden brown and slicing it into bite-sized pieces, he whips up a fresh, zesty salad to balance the rich, fatty meat. He proudly serves the final dish to his guests. Ray's eyes go wide at the presentation. She takes her first bite and is instantly transported to culinary heaven. She can't believe this crispy, juicy, unbelievably flavorful meat is the same cheap wooba belly everyone sneers at. The zesty salad cuts through the richness beautifully, creating a combination she never could have imagined. She is an instant convert. Elle smiles, happy to have won over at least one customer, and turns to the massive, silent butcher. "So, Mr. Noel, how was the food to your liking?" He looks down, only to find Knoll's plate is already spotlessly, bone-dry empty. The big guy literally inhaled the entire dish in the time it took his wife to take a single bite. When Al timidly asks if the food satisfied him, Knoll slams his massive fist on the table and roars, "It did not! Bring me more meat! I need more meat!" After his wife swiftly smacks some sense into him, Mull stands up, his face a mixture of shock and pure admiration. He declares that out of all the wooba dishes he has ever eaten in his entire life, this was, without a doubt, the absolute best. He officially announces that Elle has passed his test with flying colors. The contract is sealed. He promises to supply Elle with any cut of meat he wants, even the finest in the entire Lufan Empire. With the new business partner secured and his first customers happily demanding seconds, Elle chalks up his first day as a massive success. Later that night, as our boy is sound asleep, blissfully unaware of the new chapter his life is about to take. A mysterious, beautiful woman with long, dark hair suddenly sits up in the bed right next to him. She sniffs the air, a curious look on her face, and whispers, "I smell something delicious." Fast forward a week, and Elle's restaurant is an absolute smash hit. Business is booming, and the locals can't get enough of his amazing cooking. But as he's cleaning up one night, our boy runs into a serious problem. He's completely out of essential spices, like pepper. In this fantasy world, spices are ridiculously rare, expensive, and the quality is total garbage compared to what he's used to. Luckily, our legendary war hero has a secret weapon that's even more broken than his ice magic. He heads to the back room, whips out a gold coin, and slaps it onto a massive, glowing magic circle on the floor. In a flash of brilliant blue light, a huge pile of modern, real-world seasonings and condiments materializes right on his counter. That's right, this dude is so overpowered he can literally summon groceries from his original world. But this ultimate cheat skill has some serious drawbacks. First, the amount he can summon is strictly limited by the value of the gold coin he sacrifices. Second, for some bizarre reason, everything arrives frozen solid. And the biggest problem? The spell is so mentally and physically draining that even a top-tier archmage like him can barely handle it. The last time he used it, the exhaustion nearly killed him, and when he woke up, well, that's how he met his new roommate. The scene flashes back to Elle waking up after a summoning session to find a mysterious, dark-haired woman passed out in his bed. It turns out she had chugged an entire bottle of primordial mana water he had summoned, a substance so potent it could make a regular person explode. He frantically shakes her awake. As she complains about her body feeling weird, she suddenly sprouts a pair of massive black wings and horns, proudly declaring herself the Black Dragon Lord, Fania. After the initial shock wore off, Elle realized he had the literal lord of all dragons living in his house. In reality, he had found her wounded on a battlefield after she was defeated during the war. Unable to leave her to die, he took her in. Now, she's basically a freeloader with an appetite that could bankrupt a small country, happily devouring hamburger steaks while he does all the work. Back in the present, just as Elle is reflecting on his very strange house guest, Noel walks in. The butcher takes one look at the Dragon Lord, stuffing her face, and gives Elle a knowing, deeply sympathetic smirk, basically saying, "Looks like you've got your hands full feeding that one." After a long day of serving the masses, Elle cracks open a cold one for himself, a bottle of beer he luckily summoned in his last grocery run, but is not drinking alone. His new bestie Noel is still there, and Elle decides to whip up another modern world masterpiece, crispy fried chicken paired with a mysterious clear liquor he calls distilled soju. Noel is immediately suspicious, asking why he's being served plain water. But one sip of the clean, crisp soju, followed by a bite of the juicy, savory chicken, and the giant butcher is absolutely hooked. He declares the combo is even better than the pork belly, and before you know it, the two of them are pounding back bottle after bottle. As the soju flows, the tough-as-nails butcher completely breaks down, launching into a drunken, tear-filled confession. He grabs Elle by the collar and sobs that his wife, Ray, is cheating on him. Elle is completely floored as Mole explains that once a month his beautiful wife gets all dressed up and disappears for the entire day. The big guy, feeling insecure about his age and rugged looks, is being eaten alive by jealousy. He admits he even followed her once and saw her meeting a strange man who gave her a flower. Today was that day, and the giant is an emotional wreck. He drunkenly confesses that even though he loves his wife more than anything, his jealousy makes him pick stupid fights with her, and he has no idea what to do. Just as he's about to pass out from a mixture of booze and self-pity, Elle decides it's time to play the ultimate wingman. He kicks the freeloading Dragon Lord out of the restaurant, telling her it's time to get to work. The next scene shows Noel sitting at a fancy outdoor restaurant looking like a completely different person. Elle has given him a full makeover, decking him out in a sharp, tailored suit. Just as Noel is admiring his new look, a man approaches their table, and the mind-blowing truth is finally revealed. We see a picture of Rai with a beautiful but very sick young girl, her daughter from a previous relationship. The man wasn't a secret lover, he was a messenger delivering letters and updates on the girl's condition. Rai wasn't cheating, she was spending one day a month visiting her ailing child. The full weight of his mistake comes crashing down on Noel as he realizes he's been tormenting his loving, devoted wife with his baseless, idiotic jealousy, while she was secretly dealing with a heartbreaking family tragedy all on her own. We meet a suave, silver-haired gentleman named Arbert, who seems to be the center of attention. Meanwhile, our boy Elle also crashes the party, looking for someone he was supposed to meet. And wouldn't you know it, he ends up right at Arbert's table, leading to a very confused introduction. But just as we're trying to figure out what's going on, we flash back to Noel, who wakes up from his drunken stupor with a slitting headache. He stumbles out of bed, calling his wife's name, only to see her standing by the window with, you guessed it, Arbert, the silver-haired stud from the party. Seeing his wife with another man first thing in the morning, Noel's jealous rage instantly goes from 0 to 100. He clenches his fist, lets out a primal scream, and launches himself at Arbert, ready to defend his wife's honor. but his punch stops dead in its tracks, blocked by an invisible wall of pure, shimmering magic. Arbert, without even flinching, reveals that he is a powerful mage, and more importantly, he is Ray's father. The whole thing was a massive misunderstanding orchestrated by a very overprotective dad. After everyone calms down, they all gather back at Elle's restaurant for the most awkward family dinner in history. Elle, being the ultimate host, whips up an incredible feast to smooth things over. Arbert comes clean and admits the whole cheating drama was a test. Remember that broke old commoner who got scammed by the previous restaurant owner? That was actually Arbert in disguise. He was testing Noel to see if he was a good man, worthy of his daughter. Noel is understandably pissed, asking if Arbert would have just let him suffer if he hadn't figured out the truth. But before things can get heated again, Arbert asks the million-dollar question. Noel has been talking about retiring from the mercenary life for a while now, so how exactly does he plan on providing for Ray and her daughter? The tension in the room becomes so thick you could cut it with a knife, but just in the nick of time, our boy Elle swoops in with a platter of delicious food, masterfully diffusing the situation and proving once again that a good meal can solve almost any problem. The dish Elle serves is a modern-world hot pot, and the two old soldiers immediately start bickering like children over the proper way to boil vegetables. Elle explains the concept. You take the paper-thin slices of premium Bellerin meat, swish them around in the bubbling broth for just a second, dip them in a delicious sauce, and eat them with the crisp, fresh vegetables. The second the food hits their mouths, the bickering stops. Their eyes go wide with pure, unadulterated bliss. But for Arbert, the taste is more than just delicious. It triggers a powerful memory. He looks at Noel and whispers, "You remember the Gold Lions?" The story rips into a brutal flashback, revealing that not only did Arbert and Noel serve together, but Arbert was the legendary commander of the Gold Lions Mercenary Company, and Noel was his loyal subordinate. We see them on a bloody battlefield, surrounded, starving, and on the brink of death. In a moment of sheer desperation, the starving soldiers were forced to boil their own leather armor, just to have something to put in their stomachs. This simple warm dish of boiled meat and vegetables takes Arbert right back to that dark time, reminding him of the hardships they endured together, and the bond they forged in the fires of war. Overwhelmed with emotion, the proud, stubborn old commander stands up, bows deeply to his son-in-law, and gives him a genuine, heartfelt apology for all the unnecessary trouble he caused. This one incredible meal didn't just fill their stomachs, it healed a deep, long-standing wound between two old comrades. But our boy can't catch a break. The next morning, he gets a massive earful from Fania, the Dragon Lord, who is furious that he hasn't made the poutine he promised her. She screams that a promise to a dragon is absolute, but before he can deal with his freeloading poutine-obsessed roommate, Arbert burst into the restaurant with urgent news. It turns out Elle's legendary cooking skills have reached the ears of the most powerful man in the land. He tells Elle he needs to pack his bags immediately, because he has been personally summoned by the king to come to the capital. With the king's summons hanging over his head, Elle decides to throw a massive celebratory feast for his old comrades, the Gold Lions. There's just one problem. These things are almost impossible to catch. After getting laughed out of the butcher shop by Noel, Elle heads to the lemon forest to hunt one himself. But the legendary Archmage, the war hero who could freeze entire armies, gets completely and utterly humiliated by a chicken. The bird is so fast that our boy is left panting on the forest floor, comically contemplating if he should just burn the whole forest to the ground. Finally, he taps out and calls in the big guns. His roommate Fania, the Dragon Lord, steps up. But she doesn't chase it, she doesn't use magic. She just transforms into her half-dragon form and lets out a terrifying dragon roar. The sheer overwhelming pressure of her aura instantly paralyzes the monster chicken with fear, allowing Elle to just walk up and grab it. Talk about an overpowered cheat skill. Back at the restaurant, Fania is celebrating their hard work by chugging a can of beer, while Elle deadpans that all she did was glare at it. He gets to work preparing the palinsu, marinating the precious meat in beer to create a dish that he knows will pair perfectly with it. That evening, the Gold Lions arrive, and they are one tough-looking crowd. The grizzled old mercenaries look around the tavern with skeptical, untrusting eyes, clearly not impressed. But one young, energetic mercenary named Milatine pipes up, declaring his absolute faith in his senior who brought them here, and loudly proclaims that he knows the food is going to be amazing. The stage is set, and Elle has to prove to his old comrades that his new weapon of choice is a frying pan, not a magic staff. As the Gold Lions wait, the grizzled old mercenaries give the young, energetic Miltine a hard time, joking that he's such a fanboy he'd probably call grass delicious if his senior told him to. But just as things get rowdy, our boy Elle comes out with the main event, and the entire tavern goes silent. He places a massive, steaming platter of perfectly golden brown fried chicken in the center of the table. The mercenaries are stunned. They can't believe their eyes. Elle proudly announces the dish, deep-fried palinsu. The entire room absolutely erupts. Palinsu, the legendary creature that even professional hunters can't catch, Elle just casually tells them to dig in before it gets cooled. The second those hardened, battle-scarred mercenaries take their first bite, it's all over. Their skeptical glares melt away into pure, unadulterated ecstasy. They completely lose their minds, screaming about how unbelievably delicious it is. The once tough soldiers are reduced to a pack of wild animals, grabbing and devouring the chicken as if it's the last meal they'll ever eat. But the kitchen is an absolute war zone. El is completely swamped, trying to keep up with the demand, and desperately asks his Dragon Lord roommate for help. Fanya is initially outraged at the very idea of a legendary dragon serving mere humans, but then a distant memory flashes in her eyes, a promise they made to each other in the darkness of the war, a dream of opening a restaurant together when it was all over. Her hardened expression softens, and she instantly changes her tune, declaring that serving could be a novel amusement for a dragon. With the world's most overpowered waitress now on the job, the feast kicks into high gear, with the gold lions cheering, drinking, and celebrating like there's no tomorrow. Hours later, the party is over. The restaurant is quiet, and Fanya is passed out on a table, completely wiped out from her amusing new job. El gently wakes her up and offers her the last piece of chicken he saved just for her. As they eat together, he playfully teases her for finally growing up a bit and helping out. She looks at him with a soft, meaningful gaze and says, "It's a restaurant," reminding him that this wasn't just a job for her, it was the fulfillment of their shared dream. As they share this quiet, heartwarming moment, our boy, ever the pragmatist, decides to bring up the low bet they made earlier. Since he technically had to call her in for backup, does that mean she's off the hook for a month of dishwashing duty? But before she can answer, the cozy atmosphere is completely shattered. Fanya suddenly latches onto him, shaking with fear. A dark, imposing figure is standing in the doorway, and the sheer pressure radiating from him is off the charts. This isn't just some random customer, it's the Black Dragon Elder, Medidana, and he looks seriously pissed off. He sneers at El, saying he's doing quite well for himself running a small tavern with a dragon. He turns to Fanya, who he calls by her real name, Rurin, and asks if she's had any discomfort. But El, being the absolute Chad that he is, steps right in front of her, shielding her from the intimidating old dragon. The tension explodes as Fanya accuses the Elder of abandoning her. But Medidana just coldly replies that he wasn't abandoning her, he was just late. He then drops the ultimate ultimatum. He's not here for a friendly chat. He's here to enforce an ancient, unbreakable law of the Dragon Clan. According to their secret rules, any dragon who reaches 800 years old without a lair of their own must be exiled from the sacred lands. Fanya had been using her mother's lair, but it was completely destroyed during the war. Next year, she turns 800, and Medidana declares that she must leave. This isn't a request, it's a rule that cannot be broken. To defy it would mean declaring war on the entire Black Dragon clan. But as the Elder stands there looking all high and mighty, our boy El, without even a hint of fear in his eyes, looks him dead in the face and says, "Let's do it." What's the big deal? The legendary war hero, the man who single-handedly turned the tide of the Great War, just casually challenged the entire dragon race to a fight over his freeloader roommate. The Black Dragon Elder is left completely, utterly speechless. The Black Dragon Elder is absolutely furious, his demonic aura flaring as he prepares to obliterate the insolent human who just declared war on his entire race. But our boy just looks at him, completely confused, and says, "Eh? War? I was talking about making a dragon lair." Turns out, the whole epic showdown was just one massive, hilarious misunderstanding. El wasn't challenging him to a fight, he was accepting a challenge to build a brand new dragon lair from scratch in just 1 year. The fuming Elder, completely thrown off, just stammers that such a feat is possible, and teleports away, promising to return in a year to check on his progress. And so, our boy's next epic quest begins, Operation Build a Lair. But there's a huge problem. Dragon lairs are ridiculously extravagant, filled with mountains of treasure, and cost an absolute fortune to construct. Worse, his restaurant is so popular that he's completely swamped with customers day and night, leaving him zero time to actually work on the project. He needs a way to make a ton of money while simultaneously driving away most of his customers. Luckily, he has the perfect, diabolically brilliant plan. He tracks down his butcher buddy Mole and takes him to a forest that is literally overflowing with super rare, impossible to catch Palenku chickens. Il offers Noel an insane business proposal. He will supply an endless amount of Palenku meat, and they'll sell it exclusively at his restaurant. The ridiculously high price tag will scare off all the regular customers, leaving only the super rich nobles who are willing to pay anything for a taste of the legendary bird. Mole is stunned by the offer, wondering how in the world El plans to catch so many of the fast migratory creatures. That's when our boy finally reveals the true, terrifying extent of his power. He channels his magic and casts a single, massive spell, creating a colossal ice barrier that encases the entire forest, trapping the whole Palenku population inside. Noel is left completely speechless, his jaw on the floor as he realizes the humble restaurant owner he's been bantering with is a mage on a level he can't even comprehend. The plan works a little too well. The next day, the restaurant is completely, utterly empty. Not a single guest. While Fanya is just happy they can finally start building the lair, she gets upset when Elle says he isn't planning on leading the restaurant. But our boy just smiles, tells her to follow him, and leads her to the beautiful, sprawling green hill right below his shop. He reveals that since the restaurant sits on the outskirts of the land he bought, this entire picturesque hillside belongs to him. This isn't just a random spot, it's the perfect, convenient, and breathtakingly beautiful location for their new home. With the location settled, Fanya eagerly gets to work, literally digging into the hillside with her bare hands. Our boy, meanwhile, gets to enjoy something he hasn't had in weeks, a completely empty, blessedly quiet restaurant. But just as he's starting to relax, a new customer walks in, a young, impeccably dressed blonde kid who looks like he's straight out of a fairy tale. The boy heard rumors that this was the place to get the legendary Polinsku, but Elle has to break the bad news. They're not selling it anymore. The kid looks so utterly crushed that Elle takes pity on him and offers to whip up something else, a special dish he usually only makes for his dragon roommate. He heads to the kitchen and crafts the ultimate gourmet hamburger, using a premium sirloin patty, a rich demi-glace sauce, and topping it all off with a fried Polensu egg. It's a masterpiece even a dragon would kill for. But just as the young master is about to take his first glorious bite, his frantic butler bursts into the restaurant, screaming his head off. He scolds the boy for eating in a peasant's hovel, and literally drags him away before he can even taste the food. We learn that this kid is none other than Diren Grake, the heir to the entire city. The young lord, deeply embarrassed by his butler's rudeness, leaves a gold coin on the table as payment for the meal he never got to eat. Later that night, Fanya comes back from a hard day of digging, complaining that her hands hurt and she needs to teleport somewhere important the next day. But our boy has other plans. He holds up the gold coin and says, "We received the money, so we have to do the job." The next thing you know, Elle and Fanya teleport in a brilliant flash of blue light right into the middle of the young lord's lavish bedroom. Diren is completely stunned as Elle, acting like the world's most overpowered food delivery driver, hands him the perfectly reheated hamburger, telling him he forgot his order earlier. Diren finally takes a bite, and his eyes go wide with pure, unadulterated bliss. The boy is just about to take a bite of his hamburger when someone knocks on his door. The person outside calls in young master, and asks if everything is alright because they heard noises. The boy freezes in panic. Both look just as worried. The guy asks what they should do now. The girl tells the boy to tell the person outside that it was nothing. She reminds him that he is the lord's heir and a baron, so he should be confident because the servants cannot refuse his orders. The boy nervously replies that the servants have never listened to him before and always just ignore him. Right then, the servant outside rattles the doorknob and announces that he is going to open the door and come in. The girl gets frustrated by the situation. She aggressively yells at the door, telling the servant to leave because she never ordered him to come in. The boy is completely shocked because she perfectly mimicked his exact voice. Even so, he still doubts the servant will listen to the order and nervously takes a bite of his burger. After a brief silence, the servant actually complies. He says he understands, asks the boy to call if something happens, and walks away. The boy just sits there, stunned that the trick actually worked. Still completely shocked that the trick worked, the boy just stares blankly. The girl crosses her arms and scoffs at the situation. The guy steps up with a smile, pointing out that the boy just needs to establish his own superiority. Taking these words straight to heart, the boy suddenly drops to his knees. Bowing deeply, he loudly begs the guy to become his teacher, leaving him completely caught off guard. The boy then starts explaining his past. He reveals that his mother died giving birth to him, so he spent most of his childhood with his father's new wife. His stepmother was very strict with him. She constantly corrected his behavior, reminding him, Diren, to act properly since he was the lord's son. Despite her harshness, Diren still loved her because they had their good moments too. But everything changed when his father got sick and became bedridden. His stepmother completely cut him off. She stopped looking at him and refused to even speak to him during family dinners or celebrations. Looking back, Diren sadly admits that all he ever wanted was to become a good ward just like his father. Diren goes on to explain that under his stepmother's orders, the servants started controlling his movements. With everyone ignoring him, he had no one to talk to and felt he would be treated terribly even if he inherited the title. But then his attitude completely flips. With sparkling eyes, he declares that today's events changed his mind and eagerly begs the guy to teach him how to be a good lord. The guy is totally dumbfounded by this weird jump in logic, thinking to himself that he is literally just a restaurant owner. Diren insists, pointing out that normally a servant would just barge in even if he told them to leave. Hearing this, the guy realizes Diren lacks confidence and has just been suppressing his naturally energetic personality. Giving in a little, the guy sighs and tells Diren to start by looking people in the eyes when talking to them. He explains that the Lord's position is all about taking responsibility for every word you say. He advises the boy to listen to others and think carefully before making a decision he truly believes in. If things go his way, great, but if not, he has to accept the outcome and take responsibility. The guy states that, in his opinion, this is what makes a good lord. Deering quietly repeats the word responsibility, soaking in the advice. Wrapping things up, the guy just tells the boy to eat his food before it gets cold, as a glowing blue magic portal surrounds him and the girl to teleport them away. Before the portal completely closes, the guy tells Deering to come visit the restaurant sometime. Left alone in his room, Deering feels like he is just dreaming. He picks up his hamburger, thinking about the guy's words about being a good lord, and takes a bite. His face instantly lights up at how delicious it is. Suddenly, a thought hits him. He completely misinterprets the advice, and concludes that being a good lord actually means making sure everyone can enjoy food this good. Fired up, he excitedly thanks his master, genuinely believing he figured out the hidden meaning. Meanwhile, the guy and girl step out of the portal onto a grassy hill overlooking a town. The girl hopes Deering won't take the advice too seriously, and asks the guy why he put so much effort into helping the kid. The guy casually tosses a gold coin in his hand, saying he is just giving service equal to what he was paid. He reveals the coin is worth 100,000 runes. The girl is completely baffled since a regular hamburger only costs 200 runes. The guy explains that because Deering paid so much, he provided extra life advice so they wouldn't be a rip-off restaurant. Noting that the boy is a massive spender, he hopes Deering becomes a regular customer later on. The girl just pouts, complaining that she hates the idea because it means fewer hamburgers for her to eat. Somewhere in a forest on the outskirts of Great City, there is a strangely popular clinic. Inside, the doctor is examining a woman's hand that has a severe burn from a cooking accident. Using glowing green magic, the doctor heals the wound, mentioning that it would have scarred if left untreated. While the doctor is highly skilled in healing magic, that isn't the real reason the clinic is packed with strange men waiting outside. The main draw is that the clinic is run by an elf named Elena. After Elena perfectly heals the burn, the amazed patient thanks her but notices that the elf looks a bit down. When asked what is wrong, Elena quietly admits she is thinking about going back to her hometown. The patient is completely shocked and asks why. Elena explains that she originally left her home against everyone's wishes because she genuinely loved healing and helping people. However, she confesses that the reality of her current life turned out to be completely different from what she had imagined. Elena explains that the men outside don't actually care about getting medical treatment. They just want to look at an elf. She even had a furious woman barge in recently, falsely accusing Elena of seducing her husband. While she knows not all humans are like that, and she still genuinely enjoys healing people, she admits it is just getting too difficult to keep putting up with everything. Hearing this, the patient, Mrs. Ryan, asks if Elena dislikes her too. Flustered, Elena quickly denies it, saying she likes Mrs. Ryan because she's always treated her well. Mrs. Ryan then asks if Elena would stay if there were more things she liked about the town. She uses her own husband as an example, mentioning that while she hates his snoring and how naive he is, she loves that he is dependable, hardworking, and only looks out for her. Mrs. Ryan confirms that Elena still feels good about treating people. When Elena nods yes, Mrs. Ryan stands up and suggests she try eating at a restaurant on the side of the hill tonight. She explains that reasons to like a place can build up one by one, and she believes Elle's restaurant can become one of those reasons for Elena to stay. Meanwhile, Elle is busy digging inside a cave with a shovel when a voice calls out to him. He turns around to see Mr. Knoll, who asks what he is doing because he was just on his way to the restaurant. Elle says he was about to head back too and asks about the man standing with him. Knoll introduces the younger guy as his nephew, Nellen. He explains that Nellen has something to discuss, so they wanted to talk it over while eating some wooba meat. Knoll then asks if the restaurant is empty right now. Elle replies that Rurin should be there and asks what the matter is. Knoll reveals that his wife, Rain, recommended the restaurant to the elf doctor, and she should be arriving right about now. Hearing this, Elle immediately decides they need to hurry back. As they walk back to town, Elle points out how unique it is to see an elf since they usually never leave their home forest, guessing her clinic must be incredibly popular. Knoll scoffs, complaining that all the neighborhood guys rush there over tiny things like a thorn prick just to see her. Elle thinks to himself that this behavior is completely pathetic, and it perfectly explains why elves hate humans. Even so, he speaks up and tells Knoll not to be prejudiced since not all elves are the same. As Elle finally reaches the restaurant and grabs the door handle, he admits that while elves are known for being a very proud race, he opens the door and is greeted by a completely unexpected sight. Inside, the supposedly proud elf, Elena, is trembling on the floor in pure terror. Rurin is standing over her, giving off a dark, intimidating aura. Elena frantically begs for forgiveness, calling Rurin a great being. Smug, Rurin tells the elf that she will forgive her rudeness only if she spends the rest of her life as her subordinate. Elena stands in the doorway, totally appalled by the situation. He readies a flaming fist as Rurin casually looks over and brags that she just got herself an elf subordinate to use. Furious, Elle yells at her asking what the hell she is doing to their customer. Outside the restaurant, Mole and his nephew decide to just wait out there as they hear a loud smack, followed by Rurin screaming in pain. After apologizing for all the commotion outside, the restaurant owner warmly invites his guests inside. As they step in, they find a young girl crying in pain while holding a massive bump on top of her head. Sitting right across from her, a blonde elf customer sits frozen in utter terror. From the girl's overwhelming presence, the elf immediately realizes that she is sitting in front of a real, live dragon. In this world, it's common knowledge that dragons are walking through natural disasters capable of destroying entire cities in seconds. The elf grew up hearing terrifying legends about dragons being the ultimate apex predators of all living beings. Yet right before her eyes, the restaurant owner casually treats this terrifying dragon like a misbehaving child, scolding her for ruining things while he was gone and telling her to go dig outside. Unbelievably, the dragon just cries and obeys his command without putting up a fight. Stunned by what she just witnessed, the elf snaps back to reality when the owner walks over to her table. He politely apologizes on the dragon's behalf for any trouble she caused while he was away. Overwhelmed with confusion, the elf nervously asks if he is really just a human. The owner casually confirms that he is indeed a normal human, though he inwardly notes that the dragon made no effort at all to hide her terrifying aura from the guests. Whispering softly, the owner asks her to keep the girl's true identity a secret from others, admitting that living with the dragon is a long, complicated story. Terrified for her life, the elf quickly promises to keep quiet, insisting she has no desire to interfere with the dragon or die anytime soon. Sweating nervously, the owner reassures her that she won't be killed, though he internally regrets the terrible first impression Rurin gave off. He then changes the subject and asks if she's Elena, the elf doctor recommended by Mrs. Ryan. She confirms her identity, causing the owner to panic internally as he remembers how crucial her good review is, fearing they completely blew their chance. Elena then explains why she came, mentioning she heard rumors that this restaurant could serve delicious meals even if they were made entirely out of vegetables. Relieved, the owner asks about her diet requirements. Elena explains that it isn't an ethical choice, but rather a physical issue, as her body simply cannot digest meat. With that cleared up, the owner reassures her that he can easily handle it, promising to head into the kitchen and prepare a great meatless dish for her. Deciding that tomato pasta is the perfect dish for her, the owner gets straight to cooking. He heats up olive oil in a pan, sautéing chopped onions, garlic, and mushrooms until they release a savory aroma. He then strains fresh-cut tomatoes into the pan, seasoning the sauce with salt, sugar, and spices while keeping the heat low so it doesn't burn. While the sauce simmers, he boils the pasta for 8 minutes, reserving a bit of pasta water to mix into the dish and get the sauce consistency just right. Once the tomato pasta is ready, he serves it to Elena, reminding her to use a fork and assuring her once again that there is no meat in it. Admiring its bright color, Elena eagerly takes her first bite. Meanwhile, the owner brings out the wooba belly for Mr. Knoll, who jokes that he almost fell asleep waiting. As he sets down plates for Knoll and his friend Nellen, Knoll eagerly tells Nellen to dig in, but the owner notices Nellen looks gloomy and unsure, making him wonder if the man simply dislikes the food. Curiosity getting the better of him, the owner turns back around to see how Elena is enjoying her meal. As soon as Elena tastes the pasta, her eyes widen in sheer amazement. Having only eaten raw vegetables her whole life, she devours the dish in seconds, declaring it the most delicious thing she has ever eaten. Realizing how aggressively she just ate in front of him, she blushes in embarrassment and tries to apologize, but the owner warmly hands her a handkerchief and reassures her that he's just glad she enjoyed it. He asks if she rarely visits restaurants, and Elena admits that she usually avoids crowded places because she attracts too much attention. She explains that most places rarely offer vegetarian dishes, and the ones that do usually taste no different from raw vegetables anyway, which made her think cooking vegetables was pointless. The owner understands her frustration, knowing that spices are rare in this world, so most cooks don't bother using them properly. However, Elena brightly declares that this meal changed her mind completely, and that she needs to thank Mrs. Ryan for recommending this place. Relieved, the owner checks her review status and sees that her rating jumped straight to 5 stars, with her noting that the food was so good she forgave their bad first impression. But just as he catches his breath, a loud shout suddenly echoes through the restaurant. Noel angrily confronts Nellen, demanding to know what he just said. Trembling with emotion, Nellen confesses that he recently found out his mother isn't actually his biological mother. Meanwhile, back at the mines where Nellen works, an older woman carrying a basket of fruit arrives looking for him. She asks one of the guards if he's seen Nellen, but the guard explains that the night shift team already went deep into the shaft. Worrying that Nellen went to work on an empty stomach, she asks for permission to quickly drop off his meal. The guard lets her pass, and she heads into the dark mine to find her son. Back at the restaurant, Mel asks Nellen where on earth he heard such a crazy rumor. Slamming his fist on the table, Nellen yells that where he heard it doesn't matter. crying out that he feels completely betrayed after being lied to for 20 years and can't even focus on his work anymore. Overhearing the commotion from across the room, the owner and Elena realize they shouldn't be eavesdropping, but can't help listening in. Noel scolds Nellen, reminding him of everything his mother, Mrs. May, went through to raise him alone after his father died as a mercenary. Noel points out how hard she worked day and night just to feed him, emphasizing that it's incredible how much love she gave him, even though he wasn't her biological child. Nellen tears up, admitting he knows he's at fault, but confesses that in his anger this morning, he snapped at her when she tried to hand him his lunch, calling her woman and coldly refusing to take it. Enraged by this disrespect, Nellen grabs Nellen by the collar, yelling that there are some lines you should never cross. Just as the owner steps forward to break up the fight, the restaurant door bursts open. A panicked woman named Rurin runs in, shouting that a massive disaster just occurred at the mine. She frantically reveals that the shaft collapsed with Melon's mother inside, leaving her trapped under the rubble, which leaves Nellen completely frozen in shock. Rain explains that Mrs. May had gone inside the shaft specifically to look for Nellen right before the cave-in happened. Realizing his mother was trapped because she was searching for him, a horrified Melon bolts out of the restaurant and sprints toward the mine. As Noel and Ryan prepare to chase after him, Elena offers to go with them, pointing out that a collapse means there will inevitably be injured workers who need medical treatment. The restaurant owner decides to join them as well, and after a moment of hesitation, Ryan agrees to guide them both to the site. When they arrive at the mine, they find a chaotic scene as several miners physically restrain an enraged Melon, who is screaming and desperately trying to break past them. The miners warn him that going in now is suicide because the structure is completely unstable and could collapse again at any second. The owner steps forward to calm Melon down, reassuring him that they will head inside to save his mother. When the mine workers try to block the owner from entering the dangerous zone, he explains that Elena is a doctor trained in healing magic, insisting that there are likely trapped workers inside who urgently need medical attention. The desperate miner begs them to hurry, knowing that every second counts. As the owner and Elena step inside the dark cave, Elena thanks him for his help, but worries that he's putting himself in extreme danger for her sake. As they reach the mine's first floor, heavy rocks suddenly crumble from the ceiling, but the owner instantly casts a magical shield that blocks all the debris effortlessly. Astonished, Elena asks if he's a mage, and the owner explains that he used to be quite successful before retiring to run his restaurant. As they walk further into the dark tunnels, the owner asks Elena why she risked her life to come here, noting that despite facing rudeness from humans at her clinic, she still rushed to save them. Before she can answer, the path splits into two separate directions. Knowing they don't have time to search both tunnels manually, the owner summons glowing light spirits to scout ahead. Elena is shocked to see him command spirits, and he explains that the spirits will locate any survivors for them. Within moments, the spirits point down one of the paths, guiding them straight to an injured miner trapped under the rubble. Thinking he's hallucinating from exhaustion, the trapped miner is stunned when Elena and the owner suddenly appear. Elena checks his injured leg and reassures him that it isn't serious, quickly applying her healing magic to treat him. As the light spirits locate more survivors deeper in the cave, Elena treats their wounds while the owner uses levitation magic to safely flirt the injured workers out of the collapsing mine to the rescue team waiting outside. After sending out what seems to be the last miner, the exhausted owner asks Elena if she can keep pushing forward. Determined to find Melon's mother, they press deeper into the tunnel until they finally spot her, lying unconscious on the ground, still clutching her food basket. Elena rushes over to examine her and grows anxious upon realizing how severe her injuries are. Admitting that she can't guarantee her survival, Elena gathers every last bit of her remaining magic and casts her strongest recovery spell to save Mrs. May's life. Outside at the temporary evacuation shelter, all the rescued miners are safely brought out to safety. Rain cries anxiously, but Noel reassures her that Elena's spell was successful and Mrs. May just needs time to wake up. Standing beside her bed, Melon looks down at his bandaged mother with deep remorse. The owner and an exhausted Elena reassure Nellen that his mother is officially past critical condition. Elena explains that although Mrs. May took a heavy blow to the head, the healing spell worked, and she will make a full recovery once her bandages come off. As Nellen kneels down and opens the food basket she brought for him, he finds the bread and baked potatoes covered in cave dust. Seeing the crushed lunch triggers a wave of overwhelming regret as he remembers how harshly he rejected her kindness earlier that morning. As he trembles with intense guilt, Mrs. May's fingers slowly begin to twitch, showing signs that she is starting to regain consciousness. Opening her eyes under the bandages, Mrs. May weakly calls out Nellen's name. Hearing her voice, Nellen bursts into tears, calling her mom again. As he holds her tightly, he reassures her that he isn't hurt, crying about how terrified he was that his cruel words from that morning would be his last words to her. Despite her pain, Mrs. May smiles tearfully, happy to hear him call her mom again, and relieved that he was safe outside the mine when it caved in. Watching the emotional reunion, Elena opens up to the owner, confessing that she originally planned to shut down her clinic and abandon human society after dealing with so much mistreatment. However, Rain had encouraged her to find more things to enjoy in the city. Elena reflects on how humans live short lives filled with raw, intense emotions, making them easily hurt but also incredibly honest and caring. She smiles gently, realizing she cherishes these genuine human connections too much to leave, not to mention discovering how amazing the food here is. But as she finishes her thought, the severe mana exhaustion from casting her powerful healing spell finally catches up to her, causing her eyes to flutter shut as she begins to collapse. Before she hits the ground, the owner catches her in his arms. Blushing furiously, Elena stammers out an apology, but the owner notices she completely drained her mana pool. Telling her to hold still, he casts the spell to transfer mana directly into her body. Surprised, Elena recognizes it as an ancient elf mana transfer spell. The owner casually mentions that his elf friend named Baden taught it to them. Elena's eyes widen in shock, asking if he means Baden, the legendary hero of the elves. The owner simply smiles, reminding her that he already told her he used to be a famous mage in his glory days. Meanwhile, on the hill right below the restaurant, Rurin is furiously digging in the dirt, covered in mud. She grumbles to herself about how unfair the owner is for leaving her behind and forcing her to dig just because she can't use magic in front of humans. She complains that she was only trying to get a subordinate to help out around the shop. But mid-tantrum, a high-pressure jet of water suddenly blasts out from the ground, soaking her from head to toe and leaving her completely confused as to what she just struck.